guys. Thank you so much for having me at the NMA Torah Learning Center. Hashem, finally, such a beautiful thing, such a beautiful shul we have here. Thank you guys for coming. Thank you everybody who's in charge of it, who's running it. May you grow more and more. We need more places like this to spread Torah, to make Torah more happening, to give the people the love and the enjoyment of learning Torah. And unfortunately, there's not so many places. There's the big shuls, which people sometimes want to go, sometimes not, but these small community shuls and small learning centers are needed and a must. So thank you guys so much for what you guys are doing here. May you guys be blessed, and everybody else who is blessed in participating, and all the members coming. May you also be blessed with everything from Torah. So, as the flyer said, we're talking about the topic, everybody's famous topic about this time, Shovavim. Wow, Shovavim. What's Shovavim? Those who don't know, it's a question that's there. It's basically a time period from Parsha Shemot all the way to Parsha Mishpatim that the Arizal says it's such an auspicious time to go ahead and to be able to bring back all the neshamot that were lost. Primarily the lost neshamot from men doing the Avirah of Zera V'Tala and through other means of the sort. Now, why is that so? Why is Shovavim such a big thing that's known for this thing? The reason being is that just as we see the energy of the Parashot, we're in bondage and slaves in Parsha Shemot, all the way until going up to Parsha Mishpatim, we're finally emancipated with our first rules given to us as a Jewish nation, and we're completely free. So just like slaves come out and become completely free, so to the neshamot, the energy of this time brings the neshamot out from slavery and into freedom. So too, what we're trying to accomplish is bringing out all the neshamot that we're going to talk about what we're doing to them, from bondage to freedom. And that's what Shovavim is technically about, and that's why it's an important thing to do tikkunim, to pray, to do what we're going to discuss about later on today in this 6-week period. It's a very auspicious moment. So now, before we discuss anything referring to zera, excuse my language, a man's semen coming out, and what's the benefits, what's the hurtful attributes of it, we have to understand what semen is. What is zera? What is this thing that comes out of a human being, it comes out of a man? And why is it so wrong to come? Doctors say it's okay, so why not? The wrong doctors, the ones who don't know what they're talking about. There's studies that are saying that it's not meant, it's not recommended. So now, the holy Sfarim, our holy books, say that the seed of a man has the ability to go ahead when he firstly is in the act with his wife through a permissible way. It is one of the most holiest things in the world that a man could possibly do. That's so much so that the ark, the cherubim, the angels on top of the ark, and the Holy of the Holies in the Beit HaMikdash, the two angels were facing each other. Now there's an argument in the Gemara what exactly were the angels' faces. One say it was a man and a baby's face, and one said it was a man, it was the face of a man and the face of a woman. And they would be facing each other, not only facing each other, but the Gemara says they came so close to look as if they were in the act. And periodically the Kohen Gadol will open up the Parachot, point at the ark, and show the congregants, look at this is how close God wants to be with us. So God's correlating closeness and relationship and holiness to the act. So doing the act itself, doing this thing is not just a regular thing that Hollywood made it seem to be so promiscuous, so disgusting, so aloof. It is something very holy, very sacred, and very pure between man and wife. And therefore it is such a holy, holy act. And we could take such a holy act that has such potential to take from a small drop of sperm, a small seed, could be the next Elon Musk, could be the next Steve Jobs, could be the next Gadol Ador, Rabbi Vadia, Chaim Kanievsky, could be the biggest genius who could change the world like that, from one drop of seed. And all of those energy is hidden within one small seed. But if you take all that potential and you throw it away, you take all that accomplishments, all the potential that it could become, and bring it to the sides of impurity. And that's why it's such a great Avirah to do this. There's something that has so much potential, could be used for holiness, and could be used for that, for impurity. So that's why spilling seed in Gemara and Darim calls it one of the greatest sins, called the great sin, spilling seed. Why? Because of this reason. It has so much potential that it destroys everything in our fact. Now, knowing this, and knowing how dangerous it could be, let's go discuss a little bit of the wrong, just to understand the awareness of why it is wrong, why it's problematic. So, just like we said, that it has the ability to create a human being life. It's so potent, it has so much energy within it. Within one small drop that's microscopic, we can't even see it, the sperm cell has so much potential. Now, not only is there one sperm cell inside there, scientists tell us, that there's over 100 million sperm cells within one ejaculation of a man. Again, guys, just a precursor. I'm sorry that the language I have to use, this is just to men-only class, and just to get it more in tune for us. Scientifically also, if you guys want. So there's 100 million sperm cells within each ejaculation a man has. Now, if a man was to be at the right moment with his wife, through having children or not, that's a whole discussion. Each one could have been used for mitzvah, and the potential could have been worth to go for holiness. Now, when a man chooses just to go ahead and purposely take all these 100 million per ejaculation and send it away to go through nowhere, he brings down all these neshamot, brings them down from the world, from the lofty world that they're in, and brings them to this world without any garments, without any clothing. We're in a body, we have protection. We bring the neshamot here without any protection, not knowing that they're here. Imagine taking someone who's sleeping and just taking them out of their bed and throwing them away. They have no protection, they can't protect themselves. So too, these neshamot, they're brought down to this world without any guidance, any protection. And they get taken captive from the Sitra, from the evil forces, and they're unfortunately suffering and in pain from our act. And we don't see it, we're not doing anything, but this is what's happening spiritually. There's so much more that there's a minchag, there's a custom in Yerushalayim, only in Yerushalayim, the custom implies that whenever a father passes away, his male children cannot take him to the grave, cannot carry his body to the grave. The reason being is that the neshamot are there, the children of the men that spilled through his life came down and were brought down this world and taken captive. Now they're seeing that their father is being buried, and they're seeing the children that he chose to make alive. Saying, you chose him to make alive and not me? They get upset and they want to harm the children. So therefore there's minchag not to bring the father into the casket, not to bring the father into the burial spot. Only afterwards can they see the father.
They practice that here too.
Practice this here? I don't never go to beer, so
they practice.
We practice here too? Primarily the custom of it. So that's the reason being that. So when we also do this avera, not only do we cause spiritual blemishes to our lives, we also clog up the spiritual pipes for parnasa, for getting married, for finding a zivug, for having children. We destroy and clog all the pipes for such a thing. Now, that being said, not only do we cause spiritual problems, but the Aruch HaShulchan in Siman 150 also says physical aspects we have, detriments that we cause to ourselves. And it goes on to say that when a person spills their seed, they shorten their lives. They get bald, their teeth starts to rot, they start growing hair in places they don't want to, they live a shorter life, they lose their energy faster. These don't seem like great things that we want to have in our lives. So not only do we cause spiritual detrimental aspects to ourselves, but also physical horrible effects that we have. So a person in the right mind should not do these things. Now, even naturally, when a man does such a thing, does things that he's not supposed to, depends where he is in his life, but sometimes they feel a little bit uncertain. Why am I doing this? I feel a little garbage. I should do better, and then continue it. So even naturally, our neshama is speaking to us. Our neshama is trying to shake inside our body, saying, "What are you doing? Stop, stop!" And unfortunately, we don't listen to that. So all these are detrimental effects of what happens when we do things wrong. Now, I wasn't coming to scare you guys to say what the problem is. There's so much more to say, but that's not what we're meant to focus on. Because our Rachman Abraslav says that if a person believes you have the power to destroy, you should believe you have the power to build. So we have focus on the good, focus on what we have and what we can build on. So B'ezrat Hashem, we'll be focusing on the good. And if a person doesn't do this, they say that a person is zocher to be like Yosef HaTzadik. Yosef HaTzadik, he had a test. He passed his test. And what happened after he came through a struggle? He was one of the viceroy of Egypt. He was the top guy in Egypt. He was successful. Hakamim tell us that a person follows these steps of Yosef HaTzadik, they stay away from Savera. God will make them successful in what they have to be in life. God will make them successful in being good in their field, being happy with their life, being happy in their field. God will guide a person to be successful wherever they are because a person took themselves away from this. And more on, and so on and so forth. Whatever a person does, every small aspect is so amazing that all the good is able to be bestowed upon a person just by staying away from this. Now, this is not what I came here to tell you guys about the good and bad about spending. You guys could read the books, you guys could see other things. There was many lectures about this. I'm here to share Chiddush with you guys with Hashem tonight. Something that is hopefully something that will give us the tools to be able to stop and to be able to not do these things. Not only primarily this of spilling seed, but also of not doing other avirot. To have this mindset in mind, and having this in our thoughts, we're able to live a stronger and healthier lives. So, without further ado, please, your attention. It's explained in Masechet Nida on Daf 16b over there. It says that when a man is about conceiving this child with his wife, an angel comes, takes its sperm, and brings it in front of the Kodesh Kodeshim, in front of Hashem, and asks of Hashem what's going to be of the semen. And at the moment God decrees if the man or woman is going to be rich or poor, good looking or ugly, successful, not successful, everything is predetermined before a person, except the choices a person makes. That is not predetermined. Everything is up to our decisions, if we choose to do things or not. Everything else is predetermined. Meaning what? Rav Dessler explains this to be, this is mazal. This is what we call mazal. If I'm born in a Bukharian family in Queens, that's my mazal. That's what the tools God wants me to use to be able to serve Him. As being a Bukharian man or woman in a community wherever I am from, that's the tools that I have to be. So that's what mazal is. So that's predetermined and preset factors that I can't control really. What I can control is the choices of how I want it to come about or not. So therefore, we could take this Gemara and expound on it a little bit more, and therefore understand that everything that happens in life is predetermined except our choices. Must be meaning as well that all the good that's meant to be coming upon a person is also predetermined, and all the punishments, all the pain that a person should be going through their life. Now again, just the explanation that this punishment that a person should be going through in their life is not punishments added to them through their own averot. This is not what we're talking about. This is preset hardships that a person is meant to have through overcoming past averot from probably previous gebulim, which we're not supposed to be dealing with either way, or certain problems that a person is meant to go ahead and surpass and to become a better person from them. So these are the type of hardships a person we're talking about, not hardships given through averot, which will add to the plate. So now, everything's predetermined. All the hardships a person will go through, and all the benefits and pleasures a person will experience in their lives as well, is predetermined before a person's even born. Now, this is a crazy thing to understand. We get to choose. That's what the Gemara said. We get to choose where we want what to do in life. So we get to choose punishments. We get to choose pleasure. How's that possible? So, B'ezrat Hashem, with proof from the Torah, I love to explain this. There's a Mishnah in Perkei Avot, the 3rd chapter, in the 6th Mishnah over there, if I'm not mistaken. This is a beautiful thing. That it says, whoever takes upon themselves the yoke of Torah, the burden of learning Torah, having it on your mind, caring about Hashem always, and doing whatever else it takes to be considered having the yoke of burden of Torah upon a person, it says that God will alleviate the pain of making a livelihood and of the taxes of the government upon him. And it says, right after that, if a person doesn't take upon themselves, cast away the yoke of learning Torah and the all of Torah, the burden of making a paramasa and of taxes will be on the person. What do we see from this Mishnah? That a person chooses to learn Torah in depth and chooses to have the yoke of Torah upon them, the hardships of making money and of paying taxes is off the person. Why is this so? Because the person scratched off the percentages. Let's say, for example, Bob was meant to have 50% of hardships. He could have stubbed his toe, he could have lost $20, he could have lost $100, he could have had some hardships going on in his life. And because he chose to learn Torah, he chose to go and delve himself in Torah and to immerse himself in learning Torah. When he has a headache, he learned another 5 minutes. It was not easy for him, he still continued to learn. If a person did such a thing like that, then wow, he scratched off a certain percentage of the hardships he's supposed to accomplish in life. So he scratched off 49, 48, 47. So the more a person immerses themselves in Torah, from this Mishnah and Perkei Avot we learn, the percentages he scratches off, and the less hardships he'll have in life. So that's where we get to choose the hardships in life. The more we choose to do Torah and mitzvot, the more easier God will take off and scratch off the percentages from elsewhere. It's an amazing thing. That's in the hardships aspect. It's crazy. Now, where do we get the pleasure aspect from this? So this pleasure also works the same way. Whatever I want to do that's through my own desires, I get to choose to doing it. Meaning with this, pleasures are meant to give it to a person. We have desires, we have reasons, we have motives to do certain things. And certain things are predetermined, certain things we learn along the way. And we have desires to do certain things. Now, if we choose not to do certain pleasures, God will have to give us that the same exact way, through a permissible way. Because if God predetermined that you have to get pleasure, for example, let's say, if a man was meant to want to have the desire to look at a beautiful woman, and he wanted to look at her, and she's on the street, and she's not permissible to him to look at, and he really wants to, he has an urge to look at, that pleasure he has, God predetermined that he has to have that pleasure to look at somebody. Pleasure, beautiful. Now, if he chooses not to look at that, God has to give it to him in another permissible way. Now, if a man was not married, his wife will hopefully become very pleasing in his eyes. If a man's married, also, if they stop looking everywhere, their wife will automatically become more beautiful in their eyes as well. But that's not only what we're talking about. Any pleasure that a man is supposed to get that's predetermined from heaven for a person to get, whether it's pleasure, making money, whatever it is, if it's man is meant to have it, if a person doesn't do it through a forbidden way, he has to get it the permissible way. Now where do we see that? That your choices, again, from doing it permissibly or forbiddenly, has an effect. So there's a Gemara Masechet Menachot on that 44a over there. Beautiful Gemara. I'm going to say this Gemara, your brain's going to start thinking it's a story. It's not that story. That's on Masechet Vodazar 17 over there. This is not the story. This story is about a man who went ahead, and he was a guy with a Yitzhara, and he heard that there was some harlot. Harlot is a prostitute who, we're going to say harlot for term, but there's to know what a harlot is. Anyway, that he heard there was some harlot who wanted to go ahead and had to pay 400 zuz, which is equivalent of, nowadays I have no idea, but an exorbitant amount of money. Let's say $400,000, let's say for an example. And he paid this great sum of money to be with her. He traveled all the way to her house, he knocked on her door, the receptionist opens the door and says, "Hey, welcome." She calls into the woman in the back saying, "The man who paid the 400 zuz is here." Okay, let him in. He comes in, he opens the door in the back, and he goes into the room. He sees something beyond, no one ever seen before. He sees a 7-layer bunk bed. Every single bed better than the next. And the last bed is with gold sheets. And she's sitting on top of there, undressed. He comes there, he's looking, he's getting undressed, he's taking off his clothing. And he's coming, and he's down to his tzitzit. And it says the tzitzit, and the Gemara smacked him in the face. Now, either literally smacked him in the face, or the shock of seeing tzitzit, of saying, "Look, don't treat yourself from your heart and eyes desires." What tzitzit represent? He saw this, and he couldn't do it. He sat on the floor, and the woman was so confused. She's like, "This man is not coming to run after me?" She's like, "Something's wrong." She gets down, she sits next to him. She asks him the question, "Am I not the most beautiful girl you ever seen?" He said, "No, you're the most gorgeous girl I ever seen. But unfortunately, look, tzitzis, I can't do this." And she's like, "Okay, fine. I'm not getting a refund, but okay, fine. No worries. Just get dressed. Just do me a favor. Write on a piece of paper your name, your rabbi's name, and the town you're from, and you can go on your way." So, "Why do you need this?" "Okay, fine." Writes it down, gets up, leaves. The woman gets dressed. She takes all her belongings. She gives 1/3 of it to charity, 1/3 of it she gives to taxes, and 1/3 of it she takes with the 7 beds with her, and she goes to this man's town. As she goes to this man's town, she meets the rabbi, and she says to his rabbi, "Rabbi, I want to convert." And the rabbi already knows. "Which guy you want? Which guy, the yeshiva guy, broke your heart?" And he said, "No, Rabbi, this is the story." He told him the whole entire story. And she said, and the rabbi said, "Listen, you could take what is yours, you converted her." He said he married them off. And the Gemara could have ended there, it would have been a beautiful story. Wow, crazy, you got to marry the same girl. But the Gemara doesn't end there. The Gemara adds another few more words, and that's where the words are part of the Chiddush. The Gemara says he was able to be with her on the 7 beds permissibly. So he got the same girl, same beds, same pleasures exactly, through a permissible way. He wanted to do the same avera forbiddenly, and through him holding himself back, and it was determined for him to have it, God gave it to him in a permissible fashion, the same exact way. We don't lose out from doing things permissibly, but we get to choose. That's what the whole Torah is about. Choosing to do good and bad, and that's our own choice.
And he got it for free.
He got it for free. Yeah.
He pays for that.
Well, he paid for the wedding.
It's on her. So he had everything. So it's crazy to understand that. Now let's take it a step further. The Ben Ish Chai, in his comment on the Gemara, says on this Gemara that really this man is really the reincarnation of Yosef HaTzadik, and the woman, the harlot, is a reincarnation of Eshet Potiphar, Potiphar's wife. He says, what's the connection? He says the connection is just like whenever the Torah says beged, it refers to a garment. The Torah is referring to a beged is a cloth of tzitziot. That's what it refers to beged. What saved Yosef HaTzadik at his time? His beged. She ripped off his beged. What did she rip off? His tzitziot. What saved him here is tzitziot. So he made the connection to Ben Ish Chai and says that's the connection. That's they're two the same people. Let's take it another step, a little bit drop further.
Does Ben Ish Chai says that?
It's Ben Ish Chai says on the Gemara.
Now Gemara says it, or
The Ben Ish Chai says it's on the Gemara.
Ben Ish Chai.
Now, let's take it a drop further. The Rashi on the Gemara over there, whenever it says about Eshet Potiphar had a desire to be with Yosef HaTzadik, says, why was she so crazy to be with Yosef HaTzadik? Why did she want to be with him so crazy? He's a 17-year-old, good-looking kid. We have many Bukharian guys looking here, good-looking, better than him maybe. And why was she so crazy? That to the point where the Midrash says that she was sick in bed, and she couldn't handle it. And her friends come to visit her and be like, what's wrong with you? Listen, it's just another guy. You can get over it. You can have any guy you want. What's so crazy about him? So she calls on her servants, gives each one an apple to peel, Bukhari way. And they're all peeling the apples. And then she calls on Yosef. Yosef, come in. And Yosef comes in, and all of them are mesmerized by his amazing looks. And they're starting to peel into their hands without noticing. That's how beautiful he was. And they all leave, and she says, that's why. And so you understand, Yosef Tzaddik was a very, very attractive guy. But that's a little bit more why she was so crazy. Because the Rashi writes there that she saw in the stars. She looked into the stars. She saw her mazal. The stars told her that she used to be having a child from Yosef Tzaddik. She just didn't know when. According to this Gemara and according to the commentary of the Ben Ish Chai, she saw in Shemaim she was supposed to be with Yosef Tzaddik. She just didn't know which lifetime. She thought it was supposed to be then, but really she was supposed to be in this story now. In the Gemara's time, in the second Menuchot, she was supposed to be with him together at the time. So even if it's meant for you, if it's not meant for you to get it now, you eventually will get the pleasure sometime in your life, even in the next life, when you come back as a guru. Which is an amazing and crazy thought. Everything that's meant to come to us is bound to come to us no matter what. So there's no winning for doing averot. You just feel that you're getting the pleasure, but really you're shooting yourself in the foot. But if it's really meant to you, to make the money, to look at the beautiful girl, to get the pleasure of doing something, God will give it to you in a permissible fashion, no matter what. So this is something we can have in mind when it comes. Questions at the end, please.
Don't forget.
Right. It's better that way. So this is something we can keep in mind. To have always with us, that I have the urge, I want to look at a girl right now. I want to go ahead and go on my phone. Nobody's home, let me do something. I can do whatever it is. I can look in the street while I'm driving also. But if I have this in mind, just like a small statement, I could get this pleasure right now, but if I hold back, is that the Shem God? If it's real pleasure determined for me, I will get it permissible fashion. I'll get it permissibly. There's no winning here. So if I'm not going to win, what's the point? So therefore, there's something to have in mind that always I'll be stronger and better in my avodah Hashem to make sure that I won't fall to do the wrong. And this is something that we can take and we can take it to the bank. This is going to be something that's going to help us a lot. So now, that is something that will help us to do it. Now, it's the bad, we said a good thing to be able to help us with, continue our lives with. But now, how do we fix the averot that we did? We have to understand there's two different distinctions between teshuvah and tikkunim. Teshuvah is the stopping of adding garbage stopping of me doing averot, and God not punishing me for the averot I did. For example, if I tell any of you to clean this messy table, and you guys take away one book, and I add 3 more books, will the table ever be clean?
No. Never.
So therefore, teshuvah is doing what? Teshuvah is saying, Hashem, I'm stopping adding garbage to the table. I'm not going to add anymore. So therefore, there's no more garbage on the table. And God says, okay, since you say you're not going to add anymore, and I see that you did sincere teshuvah, which is regretting and not doing it next time it comes to you, God says, I'm not going to punish you for this. Yom Kippur comes, depending what you did, Yom Kippur, and so punishment, and then maybe death, depending if you did Chilul Hashem. And therefore, there's no problem whatsoever. God says the table, nobody's going to get punished for this table. However, the dirt is still on the table. Teshuvah worked, but there's still pipes being clogged. There's still dirt on the table. They think that we did wrong to our neshama, that it's filthy. So now tikkunim, rectifications, are there in order to get rid of the dirt on the table. So that's what the tikkunim on Shovavim are meant for. There's the rashash tikkunim that we do. There's fasting people do. There's giving tzedakah, according to the Rizal. What?
What's rashash?
Rashash is a rabbi who is a mikubal, who has a certain tefillot to pray, to get rid of this thing. So there's many certain things to do. There's mikveh to go to, there's tikkun klali to read, which just keep in mind, tikkun klali, people have a misconception that tikkun klali fixes everything. I can do whatever I want, and tikkun klali and mikveh will fix everything in the world. That's not true. If a person did something wrong, the tikkun klali and mikveh won't help you. Only when it will help you is a person, God forbid, had a seminal emission by accident, and the next morning it was not their fault. They try to guard their eyes, they try to become better human beings, and somehow it happens. It happens naturally. And it came out, then mikvah and tikkun klali will fix everything. The person has nothing to worry about after that moment. But a person purposely did an averah, caused themselves to sin, made themselves fall, and then thinking that tikkun klali and mikvah will help for everything in the world, doesn't help. So just have in mind, it will help somewhat, the benefits of it, but it won't get rid of the averah. So now, how do we get rid, and how do we fix our neshama? How do we fix our problems we did wrong? So in Parsha Shoftim, we have the Parsha starts with the Shoftim Shotarim. We have to have guards and rulers over the gates to protect the gates. So now the Torah has to be applicable every single generation. What gates? We don't have the gates of Yerushalayim. We don't have the gates anymore to protect. For every single person to have this in their heart to understand what that means. So what type of the gates of the Torah is the Torah talking about? So the Holy Sefarim tell us that there are really 7 gates to a person's neshama. And interestingly enough, it looks like the menorah, the 7 branches of the menorah that's in the Beit HaMikdash. What is that? We have the 2 ears, we have our 2 eyes, we have our 2 nose, and in the middle branch is our mouth. That's the 7 branches leading to our neshama. These are all the different gates leading to our soul that we can go ahead and start blemishing it or benefiting it. So if we hear something wrong, it might affect my neshama. If we see something wrong, it will affect my neshama. Eat something or speak lashon hara, it will affect my neshama. Even smelling things wrong, what could cause the neshama? What's smelling things wrong? Smelling perfume from women that we're not supposed to, or previous girlfriends, whatever, so on and so forth. All these things could affect. So what's the connection? The mouth, we're not going to explain everything, but we're going to explain the mouth hopefully only. But the mouth, the single gematria of mouth in Hebrew is peh. Hey. That is gematria. The numerical value is peh is 80, hey is 5. So 85 is the numerical value for mouth. The numerical value for your milah, for your private area, is mem, yud, lamed, hey. Mem is 40, yud is 10, which is 50, lamed is 30, which is 80, and hey is 5. So peh and milah have the same gematria of 85. And therefore, when things have the same gematria, they have a connection. I found another connection, which is very interesting, that says that whenever the snake, in the times of Adam Yishon, came to go ahead and speak to Chava, the Gemara says that the snake actually inserted his poison into the Chava. So most opinions say this is a more of emotional, more of a mental poison that he entered. He captivated her mind. He no longer made her believe solely into Hashem. He started making her captivated to believe that there's another source of life and a source of other things, such as the Yetzirah. And therefore, she no longer had the ability to be completely solely connected to God. She now had problems and hardships, and that's something that's a seed inserted into all of us, that we have doubts and all these things. And there was only one commentary I saw, the Bechir, is amazing. He's the opinion who said it's actually a physical act that the Yetzirah had with Chava, the Nachash had with Chava, and therefore he inserted something that's always with her, and every single man has this inside his body. And what is that? He inserted a physical snake, so to speak, inside their body. And what is the snake? He says that the tail of the snake is in our tongue. The tail of the snake rattles off to speak lashon hara. So the body of the snake is in our spine. It wiggles and it moves to do averot. And it says the mouth, the poison of the Satan, the mouth of the poison of the Yetzirah is within our Brit Kodesh. And our Brit Milah, whenever it comes out, it spits out poison. When we use the Zera, the holiness that God gave us for wrongdoing, it's like the poison that the Nachash spits out, that a snake spits out. So that's how the snake inserted his poison inside us. They've used all these 3 things for wrong. That's the connection we have. So, when we continue guarding ourselves, we have to understand also one thing. Again, I'm sorry if I'm going on a rant, just to understand different tips and different tricks to try to get out of us, and different awarenesses that we could have in mind. Anytime a person falls to a Avera, anytime a person has a desire to eat, a person has a desire to go ahead and sleep somewhere, a person has a desire to be with somebody. If a person just acts on the desire like this, unfortunately, they have no control over desires. It's no different than a dog. And a dog wants to eat, he wants to eat. He wants to sleep, he just passes out in his bed. He wants to go ahead and release his sexual desire, so he finds something to release his sexual desire on. He acts on impulse. If a man also acts on impulse, he's no different than an animal. God didn't create us to be like an animal. God created us to be like a human being. How do we become human beings, to be worthy called human beings? By controlling our desires. When we have a desire to eat, we hold ourselves back. When we have a desire to sleep, we don't do it wherever we want to sleep. We have to sleep properly. We say Shema, we go to sleep at night. We want to go out and be with somebody. We don't be with anybody on the street. We stop, we wait until we get married or permissibly with our wives. This is how we control our self and desires. Now it's really hard to control our desires when it comes to the moment I have the enticement and urge to do something wrong. I have an urge to go and eat something I'm not supposed to. It's hard to control the urge at the moment. So how do we control this urge? And advice is, when we control the urge to permissible ways, it will be easier to control ourselves when it's through the forbidden. Meaning this, if I'm allowed to have a coffee, throughout the whole day I'm allowed to drink coffee unless it's a fast day. You can have a coffee no matter what. Now, if I usually have my cup of coffee at 9 o'clock in the morning, and I really crave the coffee at 9 o'clock and I don't function afterwards, if I push myself off another 5 minutes, I can have my coffee at 9:05, 9:10, maybe at 10 o'clock, maybe at 11 o'clock. I want it, if I push myself off for the coffee, I'm training that muscle of telling myself no for the desires that I have. And even if I fell in drinking the coffee, I did no avirah. So that's perfect. That's the workout we need to do. When it comes to permissible ways, to work on ourselves, to tell ourselves no. If we work on this when we tell ourselves no, through permissible functions such as the cup of coffee, the food and whatnot, When it comes to averot, such as wanting to eat something not kosher, or looking at things we're not supposed to, we already built that muscle to tell ourselves something no. So we already automatically learned to tell ourselves no, so it's not as difficult anymore. So to learn to do these things are an important thing. So much so, there's something called a ta'anit ravad. Ta'anit ravad is that we don't have to fast as the generations prior used to do. They were stronger than us. Not that we're weaker, we guys are all built here, we're scared. But they were more spiritually stronger. They were able to be like the Baba Sali, not eat for the long from Shabbat to Shabbat. They were able to fast for a long time. We can't fast from 12 hours and we already pass out. So therefore it's not worth for us to fast. So it's better to learn Torah and to give tzedakah for the amount of money that we would be eating and feeding ourselves that day, to give that tzedakah, and that's worthy enough as a fast. Ta'anit ravad is another step further. That anytime we do eat, do the permissible things, again, when we're eating food, we're allowed to eat food, but when you're eating that food, either in the beginning, after I make the bracha, and after I'm eating it, I want the bottom pieces of the chips or the french fries, or I eat the beginning of it, and I take about a few seconds just to stop myself from eating it. And I prevent myself from eating the last few bites, the nice juicy parts. I prevent myself from that desire. That's as if I fasted. From preventing myself from whatever desire is natural that I want, and I tell myself, no, I'm breaking my nature. This is already considered, so to speak, a ta'anit, according to the Ravad, which is already considered a fast. So much so that any time, we're going to rant forever, someone will stop. But so much so, the pages won't stop also. There's revolve also. So, now, no matter what, whenever we have these desires to do anything wrong, we need to understand that besides having the ta'anit, besides doing all these things, we have to understand that whenever I break any of my desires, a person naturally wants to look at things. A person already, let's say for example, there's something in the Torah called chazakah. A person does something 3 times, and that's it, it's considered as if it's nature already. So if a person, let's say for example, did something wrong 3 times in a row, they looked at a girl on the street, they didn't stop themselves, they're a Terminator determining which girl is the best looking, and they kept on looking and they didn't stop themselves looking. And 3 times they did this in a row, consider the angels and Shovavim like, this guy's going to avera, we're betting that he's going to do avera. We're betting that the next time he hits him, he's going to do avera. So now this guy, this good guy, walks on the street, he says, I forgot, I feel so bad, I don't want to sin. So for 1 minute he tells himself, I'm not looking. At the moment the angels think he's looking, it was nature for him to look. And at the moment he holds himself from looking, at the moment the angels are losing. God's saying, my man, my dude right there is working he's doing what he's doing. My child is going to be prevalent and overcoming the Yetzirah. Watch. And at the moment he has a test, and right now he's walking and he doesn't choose to look, he's winning the battle. The angels are going crazy, Shemaim is going crazy, and everybody's making such an uproar. Wow, look at him! He won! He no longer is doing whatever is wrong. We thought it was nature for him, but he broke it. He thought that he was going to fall, but he came over his desires. And at that moment when we break our desires, because it was nature for us after 3 times, God has to break his desire also. Meaning, whatever might be hard for our lives, maybe finding a wife, maybe whatever, maybe a test, maybe, God forbid, hitting ourselves that day harmfully. God will have to break his nature as well for us. If we break our nature, God has to break his nature also for us. So no matter what we're doing in life, we are always winning no matter what. When we choose to do the right thing, nobody loses out ever in their life, nobody ever loses out. Everybody is winning in some way. We might not see it right away, but again, that's the test. And if Hashem gives you the test, the problem, you're able to handle it. So just a few more things to continue saying is that one way to avoid this thing, maybe younger generation, older guys, as they get a little older, start having kids, life, working, there's no time to even breathe, so therefore they don't have so much time. But a person who's bored, let's say a person has some free time on his hand, a person who's bored, this is where it gets in the worst. When a person doesn't have Torah or something occupying his brain, they will fall to sin. So it's good for a person to have Torah, to work, to do something, to keep himself busy, because if he's busy, he won't fall. If he's bored, right away a man's thought will go to there and already fall right away. So a person not to be bored is the best thing to do. The next way to fix what we did wrong is there's a beautiful thing, we could have a whole other class on this if you guys want, but there's something called the Kriyat Shema al-Amita. There's reading the Kriyat Shema before we go to sleep. We read the Shema of Shacharit and Arvit, and we have to read a third one right before we go to sleep. The Arizal says to read this one. Reason being is, besides the power of Shema, which we'll say probably another time, is that Shema, the Kriyat Shema itself, it has the ability to destroy, if I'm not mistaken, he writes over 1,200 different demons and different evil forces that we created through spilling seed. We're able to destroy over 1,000 of them through reading Kriyat Shema itself by itself. It has the power to break it. Every time we do Tachanun, also in the night, it breaks another few more klipot and a few more demons that we created. So we don't know how many times we did it, so we should be careful and stern to try to read it, try to be careful with doing it, to read Kriyat Shema always. The biggest tikkun in the world, all the books write, is what? Getting married. If a person's not married, get married. Because that's going to help a person a lot. If a person's married, to try to recognize and to work on their marriage, to recognize their wife, to not look around, to recognize their wife as such a beautiful person. That's, hopefully we'll talk about, if you're not married, we'll have a dating class B'ezras Hashem if you guys want. Also, we'll talk about how to do that as well. So, the last but not least, biggest tikkun for fixing a person's neshama is to what? Is to learn Torah seriously. A person devotes himself to learning Torah. No matter what wrong a person did in life, a person could have been the biggest crook, the biggest pervert, God forbid. But whatever a person was, if a person chooses to do good, they can make everything in this life and even the next world to completely transform to be for the good. For nothing stands in the way of a person's teshuvah, especially learning Torah sincerely, saying sorry to Hashem sincerely, and coming back, it will be able to fix the person. Now, Torah is considered the dry mikvah. Why is it considered the dry mikvah? Because mikvah is able to get rid of klipot externally. You're able to get rid of all the impurity from on the surface. And it's a big, big thing, especially for anger. Mikvah works to get rid of that. But we'll talk about it probably another time, maybe. But going to mikvah works a lot. Learning Torah is the dry mikvah. It breaks the klipot internally. When the mental anguish we cause ourselves, remembering certain movies, or remember certain clips of movies that we're not supposed to, or remembering certain scenes, or to remember all these things that it's built in our brain, it's connected. To untie those knots and to build new connections in our brain, learning Torah is the only thing that can do that. To really break our brains and to build new connections in our brains, to new neurons, to connecting to new memories and to new ideas, this is what Torah could do. And Torah could break it not only physically and mentally, but also spiritually. It could break up all the klipot. So learning Torah, no matter what a person does, if he invests himself in learning Torah sincerely, properly, with proper motives, and he wants to do really good, nothing could stand in the way of doing teshuvah. And there's always more to discuss, but guys, I think our time is a little bit up. So thank you guys for listening to me. It was a pleasure to be here. Have a good night.
Pleasure. Thank you.